Okay, everybody, let's get started with Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, Chapter 3, using the Steinsaltz edition. If you have that volume, it is on page 77. So let's start with the Steinsaltz intro. In contrast to the first two chapters, this chapter contains statements of sages who do not chronically follow the sages before them. Rather, it's a selection of statements of sages who apparently lived during the Second Temple period and thereafter. They're associated with the Yavna era, when the Jewish spiritual leadership moved after the destruction of the temple to Yavna, the great academy there. And the prophet, the subject is not uniform, but there's three primary topics: engaging in Torah study communally and individually, the relationship between wisdom on the one hand and action and fear of God on the other, and appropriate social conduct. Let's get started. Mishnah 1. Clock. So maybe I'll turn the lock to up. Up means it can come in. How'd you get in? Okay, good. All right, so Mishnah 1. Akavya ben Mahalel said, and let's just get a quick, who was this Akavya ben Mahalel? Akavya ben Mahalel was among the sages at the end of the Second Temple era, a prominent leader. It said about him, he was known as great in wisdom and fear of sin as him. And it's interesting, he got into a dispute on a certain halachic matter with the majority of the sages and was unwilling to retract his position. And they said, if you retract, we'll make you the president of the court. He refused, saying, I prefer to be characterized as a fool all my life and not become wicked in the eyes of God for even one moment. Meaning, I consider myself to be the correct divine, ruling, and therefore I don't want to lose my integrity. Before his death, however, he instructed his son to heed the words of the majority, the sages. And he says, I didn't recant because I received these matters from my teachers, which is, they were also majorities. So I'm, picking one of two majorities or two big camps, but you don't have that baggage. You can go with the majority opinion. Okay, anyways. So Akavya, I remember hearing that Akavya is a close to Akiva. It's almost the same name, but maybe it was like a Greco-Roman or Aramaic, diminutive of it. Anyways, he said the following: look and consider and analyze three matters, and you will not encounter transgression. So if you want to be a righteous person and not, given to the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination to make you sin, just think of three things. And he says, in short, these are: know from where you came, 1, know where you're going, 2, and before whom you're destined to give an accounting, meaning God after you die, 3. The Mishnah then elaborates, where do you come from? Where did your life begin? From a putrid drop of semen. And there's no basis for taking pride in your origins. To where are you going at the end of your days? To a place of dust, maggots, and worms. To the grave, in which nothing will remain of your physicality or material possessions. And it continues on page 79, before whom are you destined to give an accounting for your actions? It is before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. Consider these matters will promote a sense of lowliness and reverence and will prevent you from sinning. Okay. That's a nice, simple translation of the of his statement. Know where you came from, humble origins, where you're going, the grave, and who you have to give accounting for. I want to share with you something that I was reading in the Kahat edition, which has some more expanded Rebbe commentary on this. And the Rebbe actually, so everything in Torah can be read on a simple level, on a deeper level, on a more cross-reference level. So listen to this. A caveat is actually talking in this, it's pretty lengthy the way it goes. He says three things, and then he gives you like the bullet points, where it came from to where you're going and who you're giving, and then it spells out where you came from, where you're going, and who you're giving the accounting to, right? It's a little bit lengthy. So the Rebbe actually learns this. He's talking to three people, three personas. One person, the first one, and this is actually the page 77, he's talking to a person who is a spirit, a person who is extremely into the spirituality, into their divine soul, like a tzaddik, a truly saintly person. So he's saying the first thing on 77, think of three, analyze that there's three things. There's not only two things, you and God, but there's a third thing, the world. And you have a mission to sublimate the world. So think of three things. That's what the first person he's talking to. Isn't that amazing? The second person he's talking to is a person who struggles with imperfection, like most of us. So to him, he says the header, no ma'ayin basa, no from where, literally, well, not literally, where you're coming from. But it's a very unique way of saying where. It counts in Hebrew, but it's a unique way. So he says, you know what? You can also learn this according to Hasidic philosophy. Ayin is a big term, as in yesh ma'ayin. For those who learn Tanya, yesh ma'ayin is the Hebrew for ex nihilo, which is Latin for something out of nothing. That we are something out of nothing. So nothing doesn't necessarily mean, it can mean from where. It can also mean you come from the great unknown, the great nothing. God's called nothing because it's beyond what we can call something. Not nothing as it's nothing, but nothing as in unknowable. So you are struggling. You know what? You come from ayin. You come from the great unknown. You come from the infinity of God that is unknown. You have tremendous powers from that infinite unknowable level from whence your soul originates. And then it says, and know where you're going. Despite the struggles you have, and that the soul comes into the body and has to struggle with that interface of a physical, tempting world. The soul, the godly soul, has to go down here because it can only achieve a certain height by overcoming the struggle. So know where you're going. It's hard, but you're going to achieve incredible greatness that the soul can only get by struggling in the body. And know from where you're going to give a din v'cheshbon, you're going to give an accounting. God's going to look you in the days. I gave you all the powers to overcome your struggle and make the world an incredible place. So don't think don't have a pity party that you're struggling. It's hard, but you originate in infinite powers. You're going to have to, and those powers are given to you to actualize by the struggle, which you will achieve after this lifetime. And ultimately, God's going to say, I gave you all the powers. Did you use them? So that's the second persona that a kavya is hinting to, the person who struggles, maybe the Beinoni, we'd call him, right? And the third one is the crass materialist, the person who gets really, buys into the American Western hedonism, To him we say, very crass, very crude. You're into physicality. Your body, where'd your body come from? A putrid drop. Like, don't glorify your body. Don't be a Greek hedonist. And you're like, who cares where I come from? I enjoy it. It's temporary. It's all going to go away by the grave. And the third one is know who you're going to account for, meaning to remember that there's a higher authority.
I thought the next one was, so where are you going?
So if you look at it, it says it in bullet points in the top of page 78. Know where you're coming from where you came, where you're going, and before you're destined to give an accounting. And then it unpacks it.
Okay.
Then it says where the putrid drop, to where the grave, the maggots. So it's just interesting. I found that like this is to me, and I want to take we have to cover a lot. So I always find it amazing how when you have true fluency in all the disciplines of Torah, Kabbalah, Hasidism, Talmud, Midrash, when you read a simple word, it's not a simple word. It's really a tapestry of a lot of ideas in those simple words, which is why we read the commentaries of great people. Okay, Mishnah 2. Following the previous Mishnah, which addressed one's personal contemplations, the Mishnah presents statements relating to world peace and social order. Rabbi Chanina Sagan HaKoyin HaMeimer. Rabbi Chanina, the deputy high priest, the vice head priest. So there's a high priest and the Kohen Gadol, but let's say he dies. There had to be a guy on call, like the vice president, who would take over his duties till they can elect the new high priest, the new Kohen Gadol. So this Rabbi Chanina was a career vice president, a career vice. So it's interesting. Why? Like, why didn't he ever get a run for the president, the Kohen Gadol ticket, or why wasn't he ever elected? So I don't know if this is the entire answer, but basically in his time in the Second Temple, if you read the history, is not exactly so. Wasn't such a glorious time. A lot of corruption. There was the two camps: the rabbis, the Pharisees, who believed in the oral Torah, and the Sadducees, the richer class of Jews who said, we don't believe in the oral Torah, we just want the literal word. They're called Tzedokim. We spoke with them 2 weeks ago. So in English called the Sadducees. So a lot of the Kohen Gadol is a very coveted position. So they would buy it off from the Roman proctor. They would basically pay. Now it's interesting that because it says when you go in Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, to the Holy of Holies, if you're not worthy, you die. Right? Raiders of the Lost Ark, dramatized that. But it's a real thing. It comes from if you weren't worthy. So it says they actually tie a rope to the Kohen Gadol when he'd go in on Yom Kippur, and if he wasn't worthy, they have to pull him out. Wow. So this gets to our story here, and he died. So on one hand, it shows you the corruption of the time. The Rebbe will always learn actually the positive. That also tells you the Jewish spark. And what happens, that even corrupt, they pay money knowing they're going to die because they wanted that closeness to God. It's like an interesting flip of the. But anyways, this guy was a career second in command because the Kohen Gadol position was always being bought off, and there's constant turnover because they would die every year. No. I mean, maybe that too. But it's interesting. It's just the Rebbe connects. It's just that in the Kahas wasn't the Rebbe. They just connect these dots. It's very interesting because I knew that other thing. I didn't know that explains why he was. Because like, who cares? He was a vice. Okay, why are you telling me this? It was interesting. It was an interesting thing. Okay, he would say this. Pharaoh in English, in Hebrew, in Jewish, it would be the Pirushim and the Tzedokim. Pharisees is Pirushim, the explainers of the law, oral law adherents, and the Tzedokim were disciples of Tzadok, who we learned their teacher was in the first chapter. Antignos had two students, Tzadok and Baisus, who didn't like that he said that you shouldn't serve God for no reward. Like, the heck with this, we want reward. So they basically did away with Rabbinic Judaism, and they created these camps of. Well, that was like their initial thing. They just wanted to throw off the mantle of the oral law. So they said, we believe in Judaism, which is not the rabbi stuff. So Tzadok was their leader, and his followers called the Tzedokim, the Sadducees. Okay, and typically they were the richer class. So, more temptations. Okay, so this Rabbi Chanina Sagan HaKoyenim said, you should pray for the well-being of the monarchy. Any monarchy, even a Gentile monarchy, and even if it has negative qualities. As were it not for fear of it, the fear that it imposed on people, there'd be total anarchy, in which one person would swallow another alive. People would dominate others, murder them, and compensate their total chaos. So we don't like anarchy. Now, it's interesting. Is there ever a limit to, corrupt government? I mean, I imagine there is, but it's especially interesting historical backdrop of this is in the Roman era. They were really tormenting the Jews. And despite that, he said, I guess he wanted to look at the positives of a government that, yes, they're corrupt and they torment the Jews, but this is not, you don't have to look at your back every second, not be killed by a mugger, or something. But it's an interesting discussion. Like, I'm sure there's limits to this, right? Like Iran, like afraid for the welfare. I mean, the Jews in Iran, like, I guess it's interesting to discuss because what's the alternative? Whatever. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I mean, it's easy to say throw down a government, but anarchy is not a better solution. I think that's the main point he's saying. Okay. The Mishnah pivots to additional stuff like Torah study as the basis of having the Shekhinah dwell on you in the midst of the Jewish society. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion Omer. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion says, who was he? He was a colleague of Rabbi Akiva. And unfortunately, he was one of the 10 martyrs we read about in Yom Kippur, that he would teach Torah against the Roman government's wishes. And they say his punishment was they wrapped him in a Torah scroll and burned him.
So this is also a Hanina, but it's a different.
Different Chanina. It was a number 5 name of babies and 200 for it's another. This they call Hanani. I don't know why. I'm not sure why they. Yeah, I don't know why maybe it's a mistake. Maybe I'm not sure. In general, there's always some variations in like slight variations in different texts because these are hand copied from. We have this from some hand manuscripts, so there's different manuscripts. Anyways, he says 2 are sitting together, and there's no Torah between them, no Torah talk. Even if they're not doing anything evil, it is considered a Moshav Leitzim, a company of scoffers. Scoffers means even if they're not like being so cynical and irreverent, if they're not mentioning Torah, they're doing nothingness, and that's not good. As it says, it says that the man who studies Torah, he does not sit in the company of scoffers, but his desire is the Torah of the Lord. Okay, let's go on. Interesting point in the historical record. As I said, this was a time of tremendous Roman oppression of the sages and the Jewish religion. So he's telling you, look, officially you can't teach Torah. It's against the law. So find ways when you're sitting over coffee to talk about it casually. Like you can't talk about it in like official classes. Okay, no, talk about it in any way you can. And if you don't, you're missing the opportunity. Page 81. However, 2 who are sitting together and there's Torah discourse between them, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, is resting in their midst. As it's stated in Malachi 3:16, then those who fear the Lord spoke one to another, and the Lord listened and heeded. A book of remembrance was written before him for those who fear the Lord and those who think of his name. Meaning they're speaking about, they spoke matters of Torah, and it says how God listened and rest his presence on them. The Mishnah adds, I've derived only when 2 are engaged in Torah study that the Shekhinah dwells. How do I know that even one who sits by himself and studies Torah, Hashem gives him reward? Meaning it's not the same level of connection when you study Torah in a pair, which is probably one of the sources for chavrusa, learning with a study partner. But you still, like, learning yourself is still very important. It still gets reward. So it says in Lamentations, let him sit alone and be silent because he took it upon himself. Even if he studies in silence or a hushed voice, he takes a reward for himself. Okay. Mishnah 3. Incidental to the previous Mishnah, we're talking about studying other people. And now we're going to talk about similar idea over sharing a meal. Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon is none other than a very timely Jewish hero. Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who's next week. Lag BaOmer is his holiday. It's his yahrzeit. And just a quick background, you can read more about it later on yourself in the bottom of 83. He was one of the preeminent disciples of Rabbi Akiva, and he considered himself his successor. He was great in halacha. I think he's mentioned like over 280 times or something in the whole Talmud, which is a tremendous amount of mentioning of a sage. And he also was a great Kabbalist. One time he criticized the Roman government, and it was heard, and they wanted to kill him. So he ran away to a cave, studied there with his son for 13 years. And then he came back after the Roman government, I guess the governor died. But he was one of the great teachers of the secrets of Torah, of Kabbalah. And the Zohar is essentially the manuscript that comes from that his student wrote from him. Anyways, this Rabbi Shimon said, 3 who were dining at one table and did not state upon it matters of Torah, it is though as they partook of offerings of the dead, meaning dead is a euphemism for idols. Meaning it's like, idols, the pagans, they would have like meals a lot. So if you're not doing it with God's Torah, then you're just doing hedonism, which is akin to, on a micro level, the way the pagans would eat. For it's stated in Isaiah 28:8, all tables are full of vomit, excrement with no room. Makom is one of the names of God, Hamakom. So, meaning if there's no mention of God or God's Torah, it's really a table full of vomit, excrement, and etc. Now, that's a very, appetite takeaway description of a meal. It happens to be this is what pagans would do. They would eat to the point of throwing up. Yeah, overindulgence. So it was very, it's true to some degree of making the point. But it means also saying any food, even a healthy meal, it should be peppered with meaning. I would venture to say, talking meaningful stuff with your kids at the dinner table is like Torah of some level. It's values. Anyways, happens to be, it says 3 because 3 is the minimum for a mizumin, a zimun, right? When you have 3 people eat a meal together, they call out Rabotai, Rivel bench, or Batai Nivarech, or Havlon V'nivrech. It's the beginning of the benching. You see, it says like, "Gentlemen, let us bless." So it's like a mini minyan, essentially. It's like it's a certain level of saying the birchat in a greater, with more kavana or holiness. Anyways, okay. But 3, contrast that with 3 who dined at one table and stated matters of Torah. It's as though they partook from the table of Hamakom, of omnipresent, blessed be He. And this refers, it says that they partook of the table of Hashem. The table means the altar. It's called the table. As it stated, the altar was of wood, 3 cubits high. He said to me, this is the table that is before the Lord, the altar. So it's an altar.
Okay.
Which is approximately 18 inches to 2 feet, depending on which opinion.
Or
It was a right elbow to the top thing, so that's why there's arguments. What was the average? What was the yes?
Oh, thank you.
By all means, thank you for bringing snacks. Okay, Mishnah 4. No. I mean, no. On the kid, I think it's just casually it's referencing a meal of a certain amount of people. I don't think it came from that. I think it came from it's probably from a verse. It says like when you have some people, you bless God in a certain way. I'm just pointing out, like, it's talking about like a proper meal. If you're having a snack with somebody, I don't know if you have to like say Torah, munch, person's having their granola bar, like I don't know. It means if there's an opportunity, like a dinner, you could. That's my guess. Okay, as continuation on page 84, Mishnah 4, addresses the disparagement of idleness and this. Right, don't be idle and don't and speak a lot of Torah. Let's talk about the way it is by the individual, not just by a group of people. Rabbi Chanina, third Chanina, ben Chachinai said. He was one of the oldest and prominent disciples of Rabbi Akiva, in case you're wondering. He was a great Kabbalist as well, on par with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He lived a very long life. Okay, he said the following. With regard to one who is awake at night and does nothing during that time, or one who walks along the way alone, which is dangerous because bandits and animals, and one who directs his heart to idleness and engages in insignificant matters, just shoots the breeze all the time, he incurs liability to be put to death. in both a physical sense, because he's endangering himself when he's walking by himself and staying up at night doing nothing productive. It's not very healthy. Or just being idle. It's not good for your psychological being. And so it's not like you're put to death. It's saying you're harming yourself by doing this. And spiritually, you're causing your death due to the idleness that grips you. Um, okay, my apologies. Kids,
Hey, really say call.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So Rabbi Hanina was even greater than Rabbi Shimon Yochai, some say, in Kabbalah, if you can imagine this Hanina. Also, a time of great Roman oppression. So that explains one of the reasons. It says if you're awake at night, a private time, that's your time to learn. If you can't do it in public because it'll get caught by the government, you better learn it at night.
So it's not so much waking up at night or traveling alone, it's doing that in conjunction with doing your right to idle.
Yeah, like if you're doing it for positive, then it's good. Some explain, if you look in the Steinsaltz first note on this page, one who's awake at night and walks along the way alone, and thereby directs his heart to idleness, incurs liability put to death, he could have been studying Torah. Meaning, like, you could have had the tree of life of studying Torah, and you're dealing with, you're ignoring that, you're disgracing that.
Well, isn't there a tradition?
Or you don't get sleep at night.
Moses, their prophets had to be spent some time alone, to gather themselves.
What are they doing there alone?
I don't know. I thought that this, like Moses had to be away from things. He was a shepherd. Isn't a shepherd basically alone most of
But
the
it's not
time?
idle. It's not idle. What is idle? What is idleness?
So
He was probably meditating on God.
Okay,
So,
that was my question.
yeah.
Can do.
So you can,
King David, yeah.
not being alone in and of itself.
Right. Now, yeah, being on the way is interesting because there's always in those times, going on the traveling was always dangerous. It was dangerous. It wasn't like walking here. So, so therefore, if you're not studying Torah, then you have like, Torah is also like an amulet. So if you're not, you're literally causing, you're taking away your, any chance you have of protection. Okay. Anyways, next Mishnah 5. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana. Who was he? Also a great Kabbalist. Some say he was author of another ancient Kabbalistic work called the Sefer HaBahir, the book of light. And I'm going to translate it. He was a disciple of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, or a colleague. Anyways, if you look in the bottom 85, a nice anecdote from his history. When Rabbi Nechunya's, this is the last paragraph of personalities. When Rabbi Nechunya's students asked him what he did to merit living a long life, he answered, "In all my days, I did not attain veneration at the expense of another's degradation. Another's curse did not go up with me upon my bed, and I was always generous with my money." Meaning, he did, we do in the Shema, Rabboni Shalom, we do the I forgive anybody for what I read. That was like, I guess that comes from him. Or he was maybe the first one to show that tradition, to forgive everybody before you go to bed. Okay. Moving on. What do you say? Anyone who accepts upon himself the yoke of Torah as a framework for life that determines his practical and internal worlds, right? The yoke of Torah means you're not just learning, you're not just dabbling. You're all in. You're like, I'm going to make Torah my guidebook. Then the yoke of the monarchy, meaning the obligations to and entanglements with the authorities, and the yoke of livelihood, needing to work hard to make a living, and the business and social aspects of the world are removed from him. So, this is not what was Napoleon Hill? Think and Grow Rich or something. I don't think it's that. Um, it's a sense of a person who is truly connecting to Torah. Essentially, they're connecting to a higher reality, a higher sense of self, and also a higher reality. So the more, what do you call it? Temporal stuff of this world has less of a hold on you. Doesn't mean you walk on water or anything like that, but it means that it's a real thing. And it's interesting that he's a Kabbalist. It's interesting that I mean, I didn't see anything about this, but this fits very well with, someone who's truly into the inner dimension of Torah. It's meaning any Torah. This applies to any Torah. You really, people that study Torah at this level, whatever they're studying, Talmud, Chumash, the same would apply. But I think even more so, someone who is into studying the inner dimension of Torah, you're basically unlocking an inner dimension of yourself, which means a higher level of yourself, an inner dimension of reality. It fits. I think it fits better with that he was a Kabbalist because you're tapping into higher way of being, even though you're physically here. Today we gave in the Tanya class an example where, although, we're, God's very connected to us in our soul, particularly when we're learning Torah or doing mitzvahs, and the Tillim says, I'm like an animal with God, meaning it's like a donkey who looks at God, you know, like a donkey looking at a blackboard. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at it, but I'm not really seeing what's really here. It's the inherent problem of being a human being that we have blinders on, and that's by design. But the more you study in a inner way, in a deeper, all-in way, I think you're unlocking your mind, which is unlocking your soul to really, as we say in Yiddish, live a tefach hecher, to live a handbreadth above reality. Okay, and he says, conversely, next page, anyone who removes the yoke of Torah from upon himself, they place upon him the yoke of the monarchy and the yoke of livelihood. So this is real stuff. Just want to pause. Anybody listening on Zoom have any questions? Because make sure you can hear me and everything. All good? Yeah. Lynn, all good? Yeah. Okay, great. Moving along. We didn't forget about you. Mishnah 6. In continuation of the previous Mishnayot, this Mishnah 2 addresses the importance of engaging in Torah study communally and individually. Rabbi Chalafta, a man of Kfar Chananya, says. So this is basically telling you, we talked about before, when you learn Torah in a group, the Shekhinah is with you, right? Even if you learn by yourself. But there is a difference there is power in numbers. If there's 10 people, it's a certain unlocking of the Shekhinah. And every number diminishes, but each has a connection to God, but there's a different revelation of it. So when there are 10 men who are engaging in Torah study, and divine presence rests in their midst, as the Holy and Blessed Be gives them from his wisdom and his strength, both covertly and openly. This is, as it's stated, God stands in the assembly, Ba'adat of the Almighty. Ada means assembly, it means 10 people. We know that because the term Ada is first used in the Torah by the 10 spies, the 10 bad spies. And we give a bad report. Meaning that its members accept upon themselves the yoke of heaven, the yoke of Torah, the Holy and Blessed Be stands in its midst.
So it says Ada is 10 people, but here it says 10 men.
Okay.
When I look around this table, I see more women than I see men.
So it's a very good question. And this goes into, traditional Judaism. Ada, where's Minyan come from? 10 men. This is where it comes from. They're not from here, from where this comes from, which is Ada is used by the 10 men of the spies. Incidentally, it's interesting, where's it learned from? 10 bad guys. Because in other words, the idea of Minyan, at least from the traditional sources, is like men need this to survive. Like, if not, look what happens, So, I mean, that's where it's learned from. It's a good question. And I wonder if there are sources, even, Orthodox sources that would say, 10 wouldn't mean to exclude women. There is a difference in the obligation of Torah study for men and women. They both are obliged. They both have more than a lifetime to study Torah and the things that are important for them to know, which is really a lifetime. But I'd say maybe the key here is the yoke of Torah, because men have the yoke. It's actually they're required at a very onerous level to study Torah. Women have to as well. They also have a yoke, but it's not as much. So maybe and they're talking to men. I mean, at that time, they're talking to men. But I don't know I think it's reasonable you could extrapolate this idea with women as well. And I'm thinking even sources in my mind. So even with, Orthodoxy and Minyan, I don't know if this idea of Torah study in numbers wouldn't apply on some level, to its counterpart with women as well.
So say that Minyan comes from this 10 spot.
It says adat. It says, look in the bottom. It says, look in the bottom note in the Ada is 10 men, as the sages derive from the verses stated regarding the spies that Moses sent to scout the land. How long will it be with this evil assembly, Ha'eda? Since Joshua and Caleb did not sin, there's only 2 out of 12 were not bad, so that means 12 minus 2 is 10. 10 is the minimal number of congregation in which the name of the Holy One is sanctified, every communal occasion of sanctity. Like you only say Kaddish with 10, and the Torah reading has to be 10, and so on. That's where it comes from. Okay. I'm sorry? That's it. That's what I'm saying. That's where it comes from. That you're right. So they were 10 men. Now you can say it's like, well, it happened to be like history was 10 men. Had it been 10 porcupines, 10 porcupines. Like, but there's also, a meaning. For those of us that grew up with Shalom Sesame, the Kippy Ben Kippur, she was the big bird equivalent, the porcupine. This is a big part of my Israeli education. Yes. Okay. Anyways,
20.
okay. From where is it derived?
Where all of the lens jumps up right in the bottom. Well, another time.
After the recording. From where is it derived with regard to 5 who study Torah and divine presence is in their midst? It's as it's stated, Va'agudato al Eretz Yisada. God has established his coterie. What's coterie? A hand?
I think
Group. Group upon the earth. But I think aguda means a hand. Yes, the simple. Because a hand is the simple as a group of fingers. Yeah. Okay. So a hand so aguda in this case means a hand. So we see God's group is compared to a hand, 5 fingers. 5 people learning equals Shechina. 88. Where do we know? Next page. Even with 3. As stated in the verse, God stands the assembly of the Almighty in the midst of the Elohim, of the judges. He renders judgment, meaning when there's 3 judges, God is rendering judgment with them. So 3 is also God is there with them. When I say there, in a more revealed way. Where is derived with regarding 2? It's as it says, those who fear the Lord spoke one to another, and God listened. We said it earlier. So we see 2 guys talking, and 2 people talking, and there's the God's listening. So God's there. What about even 1? As it says, B'chol hamakom asher askir shmi avoy elecha uvirachticha. In every place where I mention my name, I will come to you and I will bless you. Okay. Wherever you mention anybody, wherever my name is mentioned, even 1 person, Hashem is there in a revealed way. Okay. Mishnah 7, Rabbi Elazar of Bartota said, who was he? He was it says that he transmitted the halachot in the name of his teacher. He had a lot of students. He was also a very honest tzedakah collector, a trustee of the charitable funds. He was one of the most trustworthy one. Okay. He said, Tein lo mishalo, give to him, to God, what is his. Meaning, your body and your possession. It's all God's. Give back to him. Don't feel like you're giving away something that's yours. It's God's anyways, because you and yours are his. In other words, all your talents, all your gifts, all the accomplishments you acquired, they're all really created by God. This is actually, we learned this today in the daily Parsha Insight in the morning.
Yeah.
What did we say? We said, what was the context? Chag HaMatzot. We said in the daily Chumash today, we said, today's Chumash talks about Pesach, but it doesn't call it Pesach, it calls it Chag HaMatzot. Most times the Torah calls Passover the name of the festival of the matzahs. We call it Pesach. So a great Hasidic master said, God loves us. So he wants to call it after our part of the story. We trusted God and left with unbaked bread. So he loves us. He calls the name in the Torah after our accomplishment in the story. But we love God. We say, you passed over and saved us. So we call by you. So that's what we said. And that connected to that we should always look, if you want to find God, you want to see God, look in your life at the things that happened and think about how much was your own accomplishment and how much was out of your control that had to happen for it to happen. Right? Someone who's a millionaire, was it all by the sweat of their own genius that it happened, or was a lot of other lucky breaks? Actually, I was reading, and I was bored, so I stopped. The biography of Julius Rosenwald, the owner of Sears, right, in Chicago. And I don't know why I was reading it, but I got bored. But I did learn one thing. He would constantly say, it was just luck. Like he didn't attribute his own brilliance of creating the modern department store or the mail order catalog, whatever it was. Anyways, okay. And he's very charitable. He's an incredibly charitable person. Likewise, regarding David, it says, when he summarized everything he collected and consecrated for the purpose of the temple, for everything comes from you, God, and from your hand we have given to you. So we actually learn here, one of the commentaries says that, I forget it. Move on. Rabbi Shimon, back to Rabbi Shimon. Actually, I want to point out there are some variant readings, and the one we use in Chabad Siddur. So the Pirkei Avot is in most Siddurim because why it's not prayer. So why is it in there? Because it's something you study after Mincha and Shabbat in this time through the summer. Many people. So it's kind of like convenience. They put it after the Mincha and Shabbat. But there's different readings. So the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shazam, who edited the Chabad Siddur, he has a different text. It's Rabbi Yaakov, just pointed out, not Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yaakov says, and he notes on the bottom, with regard to one who walks along the way and is reviewing Torah that he studied, and he interrupts his study and says, how beautiful this tree that he encountered, or how beautiful this plowed field. Look at the bottom, how beautiful a plowed field could be. The verse ascribes to him as though he incurs liability put to death. Meaning you're calling how beautiful is that mountain. You stop Torah, you stopped life. A little bit harsh, right? It's a little bit excessive into the like what you can.
It's also godly.
Oh,
I don't understand.
so listen. So one of the it's a clutch in the bottom. It's in the bottom.
But no, even when you look and you see it, and it's like
Right. Exactly. So why are they so heavy-handed? Anyway, so it's like this. The Ma'or Einayim. Who's that? Who's the Ma'or Einayim?
Menachem
Of Chernobyl. Menachem of Chernobyl. So a colleague of the Alter Rebbe, also a big Hasidic master. So they quote a Hasidic interpretation. You know why he incurs liability? Because he thinks it's two different things. He's not finding God. He's not finding Torah. He's like, oh, let me go do my hobby of looking at, trees and fields. Everything has to be, the Torah has to pour out into your sightseeing, into your hobbies.
Didn't we say this on this one, or you're off the hook if you say the blessing? Because
Paul actually talks about it.
Yeah. We're letting the book. In other words, you can.
Blessing for.
No. No, but you're talking about You're talking about
Maybe that's
tree, the trees that are budding, and Nissan is a blessing. So they talk about it's a big discussion in here in the other Perkyo, they had a whole thing about it. So I think they grapple with this. It's not like the comments like, what's up with this? It's like over crazy. So
Saying that the reason in this,
this is one
it's being viewed as two separate.
Exactly.
Kind of
right.
linking it, this is.
Look, I study Torah and I go enjoy myself for just pure, hedonistic reasons or not fine. It's an interesting commentary. I don't know. I have to look into it more. Okay, moving on. Sinead. No, so that's kind of the point. So this needs more investigation because yes, we should enjoy nature. But it says this. So like you have to
But my story where the son kept leaving the yeshiva and going to the wood.
right.
And then the rabbi, the dad's like, "Oh, come back here to study and say what
Yeah.
about God." And he was like, "This is where."
He's finding God. Right.
And that's the first part of it.
What was the first part?
Also, in the first part of the mission, you're also recognizing everything is God.
Oh, very good. Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. That would make sense. Just to see big discussion here about this heavy-handedness. So the Bartanur, if you want to just do quick, but now that we're all riled up here, the Mishnah is teaching us that one should not talk Torah, even to praise God with the blessing that we say on the trees. It's if you're not studying, say the blessing. But if you're studying, that trumps everything. Torah study.
Okay, it says you shouldn't
No.
interrupt to say the blessing.
Babies or the greeting of the guests.
The what? Having babies, or is that what? Having
No,
children?
no, if the baby is crying.
Oh yeah. True.
Greeting a guest.
All right, not everything, but I guess this it does.
They should- okay.
It's confusing.
It's very confusing.
It is. All very confusing.
God created all of this and we can't enjoy what God created.
I think you can.
So you have to say also, wait, who is this Rabbi Yaakov? He was actually a teacher of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the redacted Mishnah. He's a pretty big guy. He says elsewhere, there's no reward for mitzvot in this world. Mitzvot, it's a spiritual thing. But some argue there aren't but it's not so simple. But he was a very, idealist. No reward, not happening in this world. Therefore, he's insisting on a completely selfless act of Torah study for which you expect no reward. Some want to say, meaning in Mishnah 4, it said someone who goes on the traveling, right, and doesn't say words of Torah, you're taking away your protection. It's like an amulet. He was against that. Torah's not an amulet. Don't make Torah an amulet. So he's saying here, Torah is above anything in this world. This is him. I don't know if we have to. First of all, he was also the term for study is unusual. It says shona. Shona, he says, someone who's traveling on the way. Shona means you're just reviewing because you can't study in depth. You just repeat what you know, simple stuff. You're not expected to, think of a thesis as you're traveling. But you should review it. This is actually an old tradition to say words of Torah by heart. Learn some words of Torah. So when you're doing nothing, say words of Torah. Say Tehillim. I'm not totally. So he says the first clause of the Mishnah speaks of our service of God in worldly arena, giving charity. In the second clause, the Mishnah now is talking about transcendence from the physical through the study of Torah, which is inherently transcendent from the world and therefore transports a student to a higher consciousness. So, meaning even though God is to be found within nature, Torah is not finding God in nature. Torah is transcending you above nature. So it's a harsh language, and I think it has to be qualified. Um, mm, so meaning you have to remember, Pirkei Avot is we mentioned before is really for the aspiring pious person, chassid. This is not standard. This is a prescription for someone trying to be on a very, very high level. So that would be my answer. Okay. Okay. Mission 8. You can research it. If you have a question, Mishnah, go to Chabad.org, Pirkei Avot, type in the Mishnah, go see what the commentaries say. Go. Mishnah 8, Rabbi Dostoi, the son of Yanai, says, name of Rabbi Meir. Anyone who forgets one matter of his Torah study, the verse describes him as though he incurs liability to be put to death. If you forget it, I will explain forget. He endangers his life as this conduct is an indication that Torah is not important to him. It's as it's stated, only beware and protect yourself greatly lest you forget the matter that your eyes saw. Remember, okay. Remembering these matters is crucial to protecting one's life. Now, he says a caveat. Could it be if your studies overwhelm you, you don't have such a great brain that you can remember stuff? Of course you're not guilty then if you forget it. The verse says, lest they move from your heart all the days of your life, he's liable to receive the death penalty only if he sits and removes from his heart. Yes, if you could remember it, fine. You have to go. Basically, if you basically are neglectful of the Torah and therefore you forget it, then you're guilty. Then you're like you're taking away your life force. But if it's too hard for you, it's hard. That's okay. If you forget, you forget. If it's more deliberate, the Rebbe does say that you have to study Torah. This shows you the ideal, the aspiration. Every part of Torah should be etched in your skin, your psyche, till it has an effect on you. Okay, Mishnah 9. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa says, anyone whose fear of sin proceeds in its significance, his wisdom, the wisdom of the Torah, and he works first and foremost on perfecting his character traits, and only then turns to acquiring wisdom and knowledge. His wisdom endures, because it's not merely intellectual, abstract matter, unconnected to his life, but an indivisible part of his life. Conversely, with regard to anyone whose wisdom precedes his fear of sin, his wisdom does not endure for time. So what's it saying here? So it's saying that this is very interesting. If you want to remember Torah, very important ingredient that comes. Before Torah comes fear of sin, reverence for Hashem, bittul. When you have that very humble reverence of God, then you will remember Torah. Because, and in addition, if your good deeds, he continues, exceed your wisdom, then your wisdom endures. Because then it's not theoretical. I can tell you it's very interesting. Anyone whose wisdom exceeds his deeds, his wisdom, if your wisdom is more than your deeds, meaning you're waxing intellectual, then his wisdom does not endure. Mishnah 10. The Mishnah begins by citing another statement of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, which continues the basic train of thought. The Torah's essence and significance are realized only when it's implemented in practice, in this case, in one's attitude towards others. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, you can read later, was an amazing was an amazing miracle worker. Anyways, he said this: anyone whom people are pleased with, Hashem is pleased with him. The omnipresent one is pleased with him. And conversely, anyone who God is displeased indicates that the omnipresent is displeased with him. Meaning, again, Torah, a big scholar who's a jerk, is not really implementing Torah fully. So if you're truly internalizing Torah, then what happens? Then it should make people should appreciate you. They should see your fine character. Next page. Rabbi Dosa, son of Harkina, says, extended sleep in the morning, wasting hours away. Wine at noon, a long midday break that includes drinking wine, where people get drunk, engaging in conversation with children to pass the time, sitting in gathering places of the Ami Oretz, of unrefined people, just like going to the bar. These all expel a person from the world because they are appealing and lead people to waste time on frivolous matters. How much more so smartphones, right? How careful we have to be. Mishnah 11. Rabbi Elazar Hamodai says, with regard to one who profanes the temple consecrations, like if you say, I'm going to give this animal to the temple, I'm going to give this gold bar to the temple, right? So if you profane them and you say, oh, those things holy stuff, holy schmoly, right? Or likewise, someone who scorns the appointed times, meaning appointed times means here translated as the Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days of the festival, a day which is in between the middle days of Pesach when you're allowed to do work, but you still have to treat it somewhat to sanctity. You do unnecessary labor that day. Or someone who humiliates another person in public, or a person who violates the covenant of Abraham or forefather by not getting not getting a circumcision if he's older, or not having his son do it, or in the Greek time they'd actually reverse it because they wanted to look like the Greeks of blessed memory. So someone basically does not wish to be circumcised or hides the fact that he's circumcised, embarrassed of it, or someone who interprets the Torah inappropriately in matters that run counter to accepted halacha, even though he has Torah and good deeds in other areas to discredit, he has no share in the world to come. Because by forming these actions, he compromises fundamental matters. Okay. We have 5 random things, right? Very random, like you disparage, consecrated, stuff to the temple, embarrassing the festivals, and or embarrassing the public, and being embarrassed, concealing, being not being embarrassed of a circumcision or not getting one, teaching Torah not according to halacha. Even if you're a good guy, good person, doesn't make a difference. You don't have a portion of the world to come. So, anyways, here's what it's talking about. According to the Maharal of Prague, we're talking about a spiritualist. Spiritualist is someone who doesn't value doesn't value the physical. I know. I think we're gonna have to end today's class after this. So the basic idea is like this: that someone who is a spiritualist doesn't appreciate the importance of physical engagement to make it holy is the type of person we're talking about. Look at this. Basically, this person is sanctified the physical. There's no such thing, consecration. He's basically he's not believing of sublimating the physical in objects. The Moados, he disgraces the festivals. Festivals is where time becomes sanctified. Actually, man makes the calendar to some degree. So it's where man sanctifies time. He disgraces that. Or he embarrasses people in public. He disgraces he doesn't believe in interpersonal relationships being holy. I'll be a hermit. I'll study Torah the whole day, Or he despises the circumcision, which is the ultimate sanctifying the body for a man. And then someone who interprets Torah not inappropriately is they're taking the mind, the holy mind. They're basically it's just intellect. They can play with it as they want. They're not sanctifying the mind. Well, those people are basically not having a portion of the come. World to come is Mashiach, which is the culmination of where the physical is spiritual. Okay.
I'll call your son.
Be well.
It's a lot. I was